I'm B.
And I'm B. And this is Homestead Happenings,
where every week we bring you along on our journey to self-sufficiency.
And bring you exclusive interviews on all things homestead from people around the world.
So hit subscribe and follow along with us.
Let's learn, let's grow, let's go.
I'm V.
And I'm B.
And today we are going to be talking all things strawberry farming. I love strawberries. They're like one of my things. And I think also they are one of those things where when people think I'm going to grow a fruit, they try to default to strawberries originally. I love strawberries fresh. I love them frozen. I love everything flavored strawberry. I love it. So I'm very excited for this one. Today, we are going to have Kimberly Ann here sharing with us all about their journey, where they're going. It's going to be super exciting, especially for those of you who are like us and wanting to do food forestry. Strawberries are a good ground cover, but, you know, they do have to have some management. So I'm excited to be learning about that and what we can do. Before we jump into that, I would like to say that if you get time, Mary's Heirloom Seeds is going to be dropping her pollinator packs. She is so kind and sponsors our podcast, and she is doing pollinator packs and getting a series ready for January so that everybody can be ready. We really here hope to be able to bring in the monarchs and really restore that. So I am going to turn the floor over to Kimberly Ann so she could introduce herself and just a little bit about her that isn't strawberry farming so that we can get to know the person that she is. So go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kimberly. I have a farm in northeast Missouri. I live there with my husband and 3 children, and we moved there to be closer to family, so we're close to my husband's sister and my own sister, although one of them is actually in Alaska right now, working for one of the museums up in Haines.
Wow, that's neat.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I think, if I remember correctly, when we were talking, you mentioned that you did pageants?
Yes.
I would love to take like 2 seconds here and just talk about how that experience was and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so I just started out with a local pageant, so 5 girls, and when I won that, and as like a junior miss, I was about 13, and I just fell in love with the going and talking to different people, seeing the kids' faces light up, especially the little girls when you're in a parade, and you're just, you know, you might throw some candy, but you're mostly waving as a queen, and those girls, they just look at you, and they'll come find you afterwards and ask you questions sometimes, and you have this moment where you can just touch a little girl's heart and really encourage her. So from that, I did the county system, which, you know, you did your town pageant and then your county fair pageant, which could lead to the state county fair pageant. And then my mom started working with a woman who was actually a coach for the prelims to the Miss America system.
Wow.
And so I did the Miss America prelims. I never won. I also married out before I aged out.
Yeah.
When you find the right person, you know, like pageants become second.
Yeah, that's so cool. I never did anything like that at all, but we do watch. I think it's neat. So I've always, you know, tried to watch the stuff of all ages. So I think that's fun, and just seeing like dressing up, but then also, of course, I watch the stuff on TV, and it's so, you know, serious and intense, and people don't see that side. So that's very exciting.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was a fun little tidbit, and I thought, well, people might think that's interesting. So I suppose now we will leave pageants and we will talk about what we are here for. I want to know why strawberries, and how did we get to strawberries?
Well, our shop teacher at our local high school went to a really small school, so he was only part-time. And he would hire kids from the school to come pick strawberries for him in the summer. So my first job off my family farm was picking strawberries. My husband's first job off of his family business was picking strawberries. So I did that for a couple summers. I lived further out, so I was one of the first kids let go in the year. My husband lived super close, so he could just ride the four-wheeler over and ended up being a patch manager.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I feel like, so what would that, like, when you have, strawberry farming in that sense, was his, like, big row crop as far as he's trying to sell them pre-picked, or were you guys kind of tending to it so people could come in for a U-pick?
So they did both when I was there.
What will you be doing? Will you be trying to prepare for the public, or will you be doing a U-pick?
We will start out preparing for the public. That way you can have your store set up later and you don't have to put all the money up front for that infrastructure.
Right.
And so we'll start with 1,000 plants is what we planted this year. And we let those mature for 1 year. And then the next year is when you really pick all the berries and let them mature all the way.
So, because you have 1,000 plants, will you continue to, I know, if I buy, 25, my big thing is, I can, pinch off the runners. So you invested 1,000, and then will you go pinch off runners, or will you let them go naturally?
So part of the point of pulling blooms is so those runners can develop their roots really well. There are farms, especially in Florida. We're in Missouri, so very different climate.
Right, we're in Missouri too.
And so they will pinch the runners because they plant closer together. So then they get overcrowding.
Oh, okay.
So it depends on how fast you want strawberries. It is found that if you let them get runners, you can get up to 30% more berries over the plant's lifetime.
Okay, noted. for me, because I actually have not really had too much success with strawberries, and I'm gonna go ahead and admit that's because I get excited, and when I see the first berries, or I let the blooms go and I eat those, and I'm committed. I will pinch them off this time. I will pinch them off and just deal with it just for a better outcome.
So, will you expand to other fruits in the future?
So our mentors are the original owners of the berry farm that we worked at, and they have suggested us go with a thornless blackberry.
Yeah, blackberries are super huge here too.
Yeah. They said avoid blueberries, and we'll avoid blueberries because there's a blueberry farm 20 minutes away from us.
Curious as to why they say avoid the blueberries.
They like really acidic soil, and in the Midwest, it's hard to keep the soil the right acidity.
Oh, yeah, I suppose on that volume. We had good luck with our blueberries, and we love them so much, but of course it's manageable. Because...
Yeah, when you have 2 or 3 plants for your own personal homestead, ththey're great.
Yeah,
especially if you get a container variety where you have complete control.
Yeah, we put in 12, well, we probably have 18 out there now, but we'll see what comes back because everything burned up this summer. But
the drought has been terrible.
Yeah, but I mean, I think even still, even if we were crazy talking about 30 plants, that's still manageable compared to 1,000, that other people are doing. So that does make a huge difference. We have tons. So we're in southern Missouri, and southeast-ish. We're right north of the Arkansas border. So we do have quite a different climate than you even. It's real hot down here. And our soil is not great down here. But for the stuff to grow, I'm kind of curious, I heard, people were moving into Missouri. It's, people are flooding in here. And
I'm one of those transplants.
Me too. Yeah, and People said, well, if you want good dirt, they get down here. That's what they say. If you want good dirt, you got to get north of 70.
Yeah.
So, I'm wondering, what is your soil health up there like, just naturally before you amend it? Are you dealing with that, rocky clay like we are?
So we definitely have clay. There's not much rock though, and it's a fairly soft clay, so there's quite a bit of like your topsoil mixed in. And we bought an old Amish homestead.
Oh, that's unique.
So,
That's fun.
yeah. So they've had horses and cows and sheep ran through those pastures. So in particular, our soil there is pretty good. Now, the drought this year has been hard on it. We have a very long driveway, so we actually have a real ditch. And we had probably a half-inch crack down the driveway in that ditch, which is usually fairly moist.
Yeah. Oh, it was crazy. I mean, all of our stuff burnt up. The weeds were burnt up. I mean, everything was just burnt up. And, we don't have a well. We don't have a pond. We don't have, rural water. So for us, we have to haul water in or catch rain. There wasn't any rain to catch. So our garden and things like that suffered this year because we aren't far enough into our permaculture plan to have all of our swales, all of our this and that. So our focus this winter is to kind of mitigate some of those issues. He'll be digging out some pond style stuff. We're going to be digging out different stuff for the ducks and pigs, and we're going to be adding a significant amount of rain catchment because when we get our monsoon season, as I call it, in the spring, if we can harbor that water over summer, because the fire department was bringing us water, but then they just they got put on drought warning and they just cut us off.
Oh, well, yeah.
So, they had to save it for fires. Now, the other fire departments did not have that issue because they were farther north and they had it, but they wouldn't bring it out of their jurisdiction. So, it was like something that was okay for the last 5 years wasn't okay anymore. So, we have to adjust. A well down here in our area, we're quoted, it will start at about 16,000. And then, if they don't have to go farther than 350 feet, and that's if we put just the hand pump right at the location. So it's going to be a process.
Wells are expensive.
Yes, I was like, we came from Nebraska. My family's lived in Kansas. My mom's well was only like 160 feet. So up in Nebraska and stuff. We didn't know, but I guess, hello, it is also, in the Ozarks. So it is mountainous, and that's just what happens. Which brings me.
My in-laws had a house around St. Louis, and they had to have a 10-horse engine to pump the water from the bottom of their well because it was hundreds of feet down.
Yeah, that was the other thing. They said...
My parents in Illinois had a third of a horse engine to pump.
It's so crazy. Well, and we're off-grid, so they said, if the hand pump will work if we don't have to go over that. But if they have to go, he says, 450, 500 feet, then he'd have to put it in the regular so that we could run, the generator and solar, and it would need its own, system to do that, which I think when people go off grid, which we have coming up a topic on off grid, we will, and rain catchment, and we will be talking about that because sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to get a well. Well, my mom's well went bad. We've had friends who have sulfur wells. We've had friends whose wells went dry. It can happen at any time, so we don't just want to just depend on the well, which brings me to wondering, since we're already on the topic, do you basically drip irrigation that many plants, or is this a sprinkler system, and do you have a backup for your well?
Yeah, so we have well and city water.
Oh, good.
So, so when we were not the English, which is what Amish call us, who redid the house for electricity and plumbing, and they had city water brought up to the house because they didn't want to trust the well.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't got the well tested yet because when we first started using it, of course, it had sat for like 5 years,
Right.
and it was like, you're pumping and you're like, I'm pretty sure this is fine for the garden, but I wouldn't want to drink it
Yeah.
because it was stagnant. So we've just been using it on the garden, and you just could see it get clearer and clearer and clearer. So now that we've got it to a point that it's clear, we'll get that tested. But for the strawberries, we have an old fire engine pump on a little trailer that we bought from the farm we worked at in Illinois because they're getting ready to retire. And then we have a sprinkler system. And the reason you would want a sprinkler system over a drip system for strawberries is they come so close to the freezes that if the blossoms freeze, you lose your berries. So if you're going to have a freeze warning when they've already blossomed, you can run those sprinkler systems, and instead of the blossom freezing, you'll coat them with a little bit of ice, and when the sun melts them the next morning, as soon as it comes up, you save that blossom. So if you're going to install a system, just install one. And then that's going to be in our pond, and the pond water is really good for the plants too, because it brings some of that nutrients from, decayed plants or fish excrement, and pond water is really good for them.
So, and we use our duck water for so many things. It does wonderful. Yeah. So no one's ever in the history of, my grandma too was, she had all of her books from, the Master Gardening and stuff like that. And all the research I've done and everything, no one's ever mentioned letting the blossoms freeze to thaw. And then I wonder, does that apply to more things?
It can, but getting your trees sprinkled all over evenly is really difficult. But you could do it to save like a few.
I want our plum tree. Oh, it bloomed beautiful. It was just, I was so excited. And then we had that super late freeze frost situation.
Oh, yeah.
And it took a peach tree, it took my plum tree, an apple tree, and one of the pear trees.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we planted new cherry trees and peach trees. The freeze took the cherry trees because they were too young, and the drought took the peach trees.
Yeah, well, and we had a flash flood take a peach tree, and I'm just like, what is going on? So
yeah, we had a storm take a pear tree because it was probably 4 years old, just ready to.
I was like, that's the worst
producing
time.
Fruit, and but it's still really thin, and yeah.
Yeah.
We had no pears this year.
Well, we had like, I don't know, we probably had a dozen on there, and then the wasps.
Mm-hmm.
And they left me one. They left me one pear. I was like, are you kidding me? I was already super excited that they were, going to produce something small early. But no, the wasps couldn't have it. They left me one apple and one pear. So.
Wow. It's been that dry, they can't get water anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So, what varieties do you grow, and which ones do you suggest?
So we have 3 that we have planted right now. Early Glow, Honey Eye, and Jewel. Those are our favorites.
I've heard of Jewel.
Yeah, so Early Glow is the smallest berry. We think it's the sweetest. Honey Eye is also very sweet, and it's also a smaller berry. So those are the earlier ripening ones. Jewel is a mid-season, and that's a really common you-pick strawberry. We do not suggest all-stars. They get really big, but they also tend to get hollow and can be a little like styrofoamy and bland. But those are the ones you see typically in Walmart. Those huge ones, all-stars.
We planted those and Ozark Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the all stars, they didn't do anything. They just died.
Yeah.
The Ozark Beauty were pretty resilient. I mean, they made it through a chicken attack and
Oh
everything.
wow.
It's just
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I was wanting something when I went up to UPick up there where we were from and stuff. Their berries were super juicy, massive, and extremely tart sweet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And these really lacked that for me. Um, so that's why I was like, okay, I'm looking forward to this discussion because we want to, buy some for putting in the spring. And I'm like, if those are I got to do more research because I don't want to put just those two in because I didn't really care for them at all. And I don't want to just plant them just to have them.
Yeah. If you're wanting sweet, definitely go with that Honey Eye or Early Glow. They're going to be smaller. We tell people all the time, don't worry about size.
Well,
Just because you get those hollow spots, they tend to be more fleshy than sweet.
yeah, better to just have a good
Hmm.
strawberry.
Yeah.
Um, I will say how, I guess, walk us through, okay, we're going to do it. All right, we're doing it in our thing. We've decided, okay, this is a variety we're going to grow. Now what? How do we grow them successfully other than pinching them off? I mean, are we prepping holes like we'd prep trees, or are we, deep mulching, or what do we do here?
So you'll want to cultivate, till, and get your soil nice and worked up. I suggest something high nitrogen because simply for the first year you don't want to have a lot of berries, right? So high in nitrogen to really get that foliage built up. That way you can get your daughter plants and build a mound because strawberries don't like wet feet, but they like a lot of water, right? So build a mound so they can drain nicely and fertilize those mounds really, really well
What
because
what
you aren't
is
going to.
your fertilizer suggestion as far as um if someone had access to, say, rabbit manure, which is what we use, versus going and buying the whatever the nitrogen. It's escaping me right now, but you know what I mean. If we what is does it matter, or do they tend to be like, okay, they're gonna want nitrogen in this form, or this is higher or not, because we tend to use rabbit manure everywhere and
Yeah.
Rabbit manure
ducks.
is great. We use composted horse manure this year. Horse manure is high in nitrogen. You do have to be careful with horse manure. You're pulling a lot more weeds.
Oh yeah, that would be true.
Yeah.
I I think a lot of people don't have access. Well, I think they have more access than they think, but they're not sure where to look, which we'll be going over in our rabbit series. But where to get them? Fortunately, we have them, but we have noticed that, say, the blueberries, for example, they needed a little bit more than what the rabbit manure could give them. So we had to kind of adjust, and we used the ducks, and so we found we have more success with the blood meal and the duck manure
Yeah.
than we did with rabbits.
We plan on making some fish emulsion. We have 3 ponds, and we're going to have to overfish our pond this year because we're going to lose the fish anyway. So we'll make some fish emulsion for next year. Fish emulsion's high in nitrogen and still has a decent amount of all the other nutrients you need.
We he's gonna be doing a smaller pond for us, and we wanted to do in the spring. Well, so we've done hydroponics. We like
Hmm.
to add aquaponics, and it'll be like a little bit with a twist. But we thought, well, that'll be we want to be able to use that water too, and kind of use that pond system. So it's nice to know we are on the right track here.
Yes.
Strawberries for us are going to be so extreme because we're wanting to use them heavily as the ground cover for so many of these guilds, and all those things. But I just keep getting, I think like my largest strawberry harvest was like 5. And they were so small. And so
They were good though.
they were good, but hearing you talk, I already know what I've done wrong. I'm not mounting them. They're probably sitting in water. I'm not pinching off blooms. I'm not growing strong varieties. I'm not, probably not fertilizing properly. And so I just wasn't going to have the success I need to actually put up a year's worth of strawberry products for us. It just wasn't going to happen. And another thing with them is the pests. I knew about, we have added the red rocks, and sure that helps, but they're just getting eaten up. And we are organic and things like that, but at the same time, I guess I'm not even using maybe the right organic option, because it's still, we named them and it did like nothing. They just got completely destroyed. So what is your, I don't know if you are organic, but if you are or were, what would you suggest that I could do with or in it without neem oil to help protect those?
Yeah, so we don't really consider ourselves organic. We prefer sustainable. So there are certain things on the organic side that are safer, and certain things on conventional that are safer. And a lot of that will depend on your area and the pests. So talk to your local extension office is the best suggestion I can have for not only your particular state, but your particular county. Because, right, southern Missouri versus northern Missouri. Sorry, I grew up in southern Illinois. Which is where the berry farm was that we worked at. But southern Missouri versus northern Missouri, very, very different pest.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So we don't deal with as much being bug eaten as we deal with like deer and rabbits. And of course, nothing you can spray is really going to deter the deer or the rabbits, and that's barrier systems, or like a dog or something.
Yeah.
That'll run them off.
We have a barrier system, and their names are Scar and Mufasa.
Yeah.
And they make sure everything, people to the rabbit, they're out of there. Anything small, Mama Cat and her crew take care of. Anything bigger than, just a small rabbit, the dogs take care of. And we are very, very fortunate to have them. We do have another dog as well, but he's not out 100% of the time. But yeah, I'm a firm believer in, if you don't have a double fence, you probably got to have a dog.
Yes. Yeah. So we've been dealing with the deer. We're in the process of getting our double fence up. Honestly, the most trouble we've had with them. And then strawberries are also susceptible to fungus. There's not a lot you can spray on strawberries. The berries themselves are very tender. Okay. So it's all about spraying before.
Like with the trees, like you got to do it before you have a problem, or you just can't. So you're fortunate to have a mentor, which is awesome, and then you, in a sense, here are mentoring us and everyone listening. What tips do you wish you would have known? You have a mentor, so they've probably told you a lot of things, but what do you think is not readily available for us that we should know before starting our strawberry journey?
I mean, the things like to get over winter. Strawberries wanted bedded down. And people do, they lay a ground cover and, maybe a little bit of straw or some leaves around them. But really, strawberries want heavily strawed. Okay. If you're doing a large area, the one type of, specialty equipment would be maybe a straw chopper, which is what we'll use for the 1,000 plants we have. And as we expand, right, we'll need that straw chopper. That way, when you go through and till between rows that keep weeds down, you're not binding your tiller.
Well, there's another reason they never come back, dear. Because I just leave them out there because I thought, oh, they're hardy. I never put anything on it. My goodness, I am just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's over here kind of laughing at me because he's like thinking to himself, we were never going to have strawberry jam. um, so that's good to know. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people out there who are like, huh, because people just expect the strawberries to come back. They don't think about it. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you've just helped everybody with their 2023 harvest.
Yeah.
I would say now I kind of want to know about your business specifically. Like, so what does 2023 look like for you?
So 2023, we're not expecting as good of a harvest as we originally hoped for because of the drought. We simply couldn't water enough once the cracks started forming next to the strawberry beds, and it was just like sucking water.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a little bit unfortunate there. Our best berry this year, as far as the drought went, was the early glow, and they are still putting off runners like crazy. The jewel we did plant a little late, because you can plant them in June, but we went from a very cold spring where we planted everything a little bit late anyway,
Yeah.
to planting the jewels late and then it getting really hot, and we've had no rain. Even when the rain would go across the northeast Missouri area, it would split around us.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking like our county. I'm talking our area. It's like 5 farms, us, and then a bunch of Amish. And to the point where even the Amish didn't even have tomatoes.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's bad then. They have, talk about a green thumb. I mean,
but we would get no rain, and then the baseball field would get rained out because it formed of us and scooted over it. So we're gonna have a poor harvest next year, and that's just one of those. It happens. You have 3 years of drought, and we're not discouraged by that because we know exactly what's going on.
Right. Well.
So we'll be putting in another patch next year. We're thinking more jewels because they're just a good seller. They produce well, and they tend to come back very well.
So do you do anything on your farm other than strawberries, or will you do anything not necessarily fruits? I mean, animals or gardening?
Yeah, we have not bought breeders yet, but we do have feeder hogs that we have scheduled for next year to be butchered for sale in Missouri.
Well, that's awesome. We raise red wattles here. And anybody wondering about raising pigs can listen to episode 1 that released last Tuesday. But we have a butcher date for old Reuben on December 12th. And let me tell you what, that day cannot come fast enough. He is a pain.
The Idaho pasture pig. And we got our first, we called him Bacon, and he was originally supposed to be a breeder, but he retained his testicles. And it was really sad, because it's you have the best personality. He's sweet, he's good with the kids, which the Idaho pasture pigs are known for being good with kids.
We would have liked them.
We have more feeders coming.
We looked into them and coonies, and we couldn't find them. When I say couldn't find them, I found some coonies for $800.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that. That was a hard pass for me. Because we didn't have a lot of pig experience, and I'm not going to test my waters with $3,000 worth of pigs in a trio. So that was a no. So we ended up with the red wattles, which actually we're super pleased with. But we still, we were thinking, okay, do we still want the IPPs or the coonies, American guinea hogs? I think we decided that we're going to do the coonies, but I am curious if you're having just as wonderful of an experience, and it sounds like you are, with how everybody else says about the IPPs, even though they are a bit bigger.
We're having a wonderful experience. We eat a lot of pork, so we definitely knew we didn't want a coonie.
Well, and they're a lard pig, and that worried me because, The red wattles are, they're known as the sirloin. of,
Mhm.
and super red meat and all that, and really well marbled. And so that was like huge for us. But we wanted to have that lard. We've got goats, so come spring, we're talking soaps, um, things like that. So we would like to bring them in. They also do, of course, they're part of the business plan. They market well. They're smaller. People want them. They say that they're delicious. A lot of people don't mind that, that fat line and stuff like that. So we've considered it, but I'm always curious, when people, I know a gal who does strawberries and blueberries and some other things in the southwestern part of the state here. And they just did their first season of U-Pick, and they do like Highland cattle and stuff like that. So I always find it interesting where these U-Pick and stuff, that's the main thing. But you guys are still
Yep.
doing everything else. I think, some questions that funneled into me before, when I announced last week that you would be speaking was people were wondering, they said, make sure that you ask, what else they're doing because they've just assumed that you just farmed strawberries. You just woke up, strawberries, bed strawberries. You don't have any animals. They thought that you bought the farm specifically for strawberries. And I'd just like to make awareness that sometimes people have parts of their business that shines, but they're putting in the work. They're doing it regardless of what their thing is.
Oh yeah, I sold plant starts at the farmers market this year, mostly just to pay for my own garden because we just moved, and we moved because of a family member's illness. So
Mm.
it was sudden and kind of, that weird mid-COVID medical issues,
Oh
and
yes, yeah.
it was like we have got to be closer to help with their kids because they have four. So I ended up like crisis schooling six kids for homeschool.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I'm surprised you're even around for us to have this conversation. So I think that in itself, what you're doing there, did that pose complications with your overall plan, or what complications have you run into? I mean, especially starting this COVID time with, other kids, medical issues, drought. I mean, was that kind of it, or were you also finding out like, man, we are going to have to readjust here and here and here as well?
Yeah. Well, we weren't gonna do strawberries when we lived in Wisconsin because there was a strawberry farm near us, and we had talked about like Jaffy Little Pumpkins or lavender because lavender grows really well up in Wisconsin. And when all this happened, it was a readjustment, So it's like, all right, what grows around here? And we live around the Amish, right? So you don't want to be competing with the Amish because people are just gonna go shop from the Amish.
It's impossible. You can't do it. Down here
Yeah.
at the farmers market, we had the same stuff on our table, and they had a line wrapping their booth, and
Yep.
I was like, all right.
And you can even have like my neighbor Ruby will suggest people go try something in mine because she knows what it tastes like because I've let her try it. And she's like, no, it's better. Trust me. And people don't believe her. They think she's just being nice.
Yeah,
And she's honest. Like, they're not lying. The Amish aren't going to lie to you.
I wonder. I just side note here. What so when we drive, here in southern Missouri too, we have a lot of Amish, especially around Seymour and on the way to Alton and things like that. And I always love to drive by. I mean, we were able to drive by and still see them. They were out there haying their fields with the horses.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what does that? I know around here, a lot of times they'll help the English. The English will help them. You mentioned that she, kind of is like, hey, go try her stuff or anything. Do you guys get together? Is there a community there? How does that? I just am always curious because I don't live by them. I just love watching the farms from afar.
Yeah, we have good relationship with our neighbors. They'll come up the driveway just to say hi. Because we have an L-shaped property, so their hay fields are in that L shape. And, if they're coming back there, they'll come say hi. They come fish off our pond because they don't have a good fishing pond. And we've gone down. They actually run the small engine shop, like, at the end of our driveway. So we've needed a part for our lawnmower. And it's like, hey, do you have this? And they don't normally, like, just sell parts. But, yeah, they'll sell us parts if they've got them.
That's kind
And,
of neat.
yeah. And
I
we're in walking distance of several shops. I mean, by walking distance, less than a mile.
Well, and there was some people here who got invited on Thanksgiving to go do Thanksgiving, and they were on Facebook and they said, "What do you bring to an Amish Thanksgiving?" So I just always thought, wow, it's just so neat. We were able to go into their greenhouse and just see how that's done, and obviously they're also off grid. So they're off grid and not trending about it. But we were able to see their systems in place, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. They've worked out the kinks. I can't wait to do that. But so I had to sidestep off the strawberries there for a minute. I had to ask. I was so curious. I guess the only people we know are either outside Kansas City, row farming, or of course, Doug and Stacy. We've seen them on YouTube, and I know they have a lot of Amish neighbors. I think they're by Hannibal or something. So I think we had a couple of fun questions come in for this, and so I did include them in your questionnaire I sent you. Was would you ever grow, or have you grown, the white pineberry?
I haven't had experience with, like, the white pineberry. It's not something we're against growing, but we definitely want to get established before we even consider doing something a little bit different, especially in the area we're in, where people want a very traditional tasting, homegrown.
Right. We were able to buy a package. We couldn't, we didn't grow them, but we were able to buy them, and they were really good.
I like them a lot.
Yeah, he's really picky with fruit. He's very picky with fruit. We're currently in the middle of an apple journey. We just got done with a pear journey. He tried a nectarine for the first time, like 2 years ago. I mean, he is just not an adventurous fruit guy. So we've been trying, and he really enjoyed that. They were like, well, first of all, they said they were a white berry that would have like a pineapple-y taste. I don't really think we got that. It was like what would you have compared that taste to?
I don't know if I can compare it to anything, but
to me,
it
it was
had
like
a different taste than a strawberry.
Yeah, it was like a smooth. It was like smooth, like a mango would be, but it was extremely sweet, like, and tart, like a tart grape. I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I don't like pineapple. I would have definitely known. I wouldn't say it was like that at all. I think when they're saying it's like comparable to that, I think they're talking about that tart sweet. After you're done and you're swallowing, and you're like, ooh. I think that's what they're.
It's more of like when you have a green strawberry, that tartness mixed with the sweetness of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much where it is. Another thing was this I kind of saved into a weird spot in this conversation, just because I don't know how much you'll have on it, and it could be a lot. People asked me, when I already had this in the questions, so good thing I was on the right track. Let's talk about yield, like plant to yield, because I've got friends, a lot of them down here. We're talking families of 7, and they just cannot grow enough. And it's like, when you're looking online, you're seeing, oh, I got a bundle of 25, or oh, here's 100 runners. What do we do here?
So if you're wanting to have enough for a family of 7, it's really suggested to have about 50 plants per person. So if you have a family of 7, 50 times 7.
Okay, that makes sense. That's also why we're not getting enough.
That's a lot of strawberries.
It's a lot of strawberries.
It is.
There's, we're small. We're a family of 3, but I feel like, eat an excessive amount of strawberries.
And if you're Yeah, we do too. So we have like 300 set aside for ourselves, probably plants in a different area, and that'll be okay for us. But we'll probably make our own personal patch a little bit bigger as things grow, because that's all of our favorite fruit.
Yeah, well, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, we're going to use it as the ground cover, but there's other things that need to be the ground cover as well. And so it's like we're not lacking in space to grow them. It's just we I'm like, okay, what is our minimum here? Because we also have to factor for loss. Um,
Hmm.
and if we go, let's say we're going to Walmart. We go to Walmart, we buy that, that single plastic thing of strawberries. Um, that's like a lunch.
Yes.
So especially I do have a medical condition and I need to eat a lot of whole foods, a lot of fruits and vegetables and things like that often. That's like the pretty much the basis of my diet. And my son will get crazy. He's also a growing boy. We're talking 13,
Hmm.
so I'm like, okay, I'm hearing 50 plants a person, so then we're 150 plants, but then, you know, the dogs and the cats, they'll do their best. But once we go into the forest part, they're not going to get every chipmunk, every mouse, every this and that. So we're probably, needing to have some type of controlled environment at 100 a person just for us personally, and then whatever we get from all the other spaces would be
Yes.
our additional, basically. And I use us as an example, but there's a lot of families like us, and especially in our area, um, and they just don't know. We strawberry pie, strawberry cheesecake, strawberries, frozen smoothies. You start going through all these things, and then one thing leads to another, and you're out buying the Amish strawberries
Hmm.
because you don't have enough. So that's kind of nice to know about yield. And even asking online in Facebook groups and stuff like that, people will just say, oh, just grow a lot or toss in a bundle of 100. And that's just not guiding. That just
It's
doesn't tell
not.
me anything. So I always wondered about that. Um,
So, what are some of the goals for your farm and for the future
like
and
overall,
overall, like where do you see it going?
5 years.
We'll expand at least by one patch every year, and that's the current expansion goal. And as my kids get into school, of course, that becomes more manageable. We will have to hire employees. There are harvesters for strawberries. They're multi-million-dollar machines, and not reasonable to buy yet because they've been invented in the last 5 years.
Oh, oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to sell off a kidney or something for
So
that.
so it's all hand harvesting still for strawberries for the most part. And we have some homesteading families. There's actually been a lot of Amish that have moved out, and English families have bought them. So there's some families that are living off grid, some families that are converting to some electric, very sustainable living type situations, and they have 3, 4, 5 kids, and then of course have all the Amish kids, and we will try to hire those kids up for the 2 to 3 weeks of harvest. If you plant a later variety, you get 5 weeks of harvest, and those kids you pay per pound picked.
I'm glad that you just brought that up. Um, because I thought about this question whilst we've been talking and then forgot again because that's so me. Um, I'm what is so there's like June bearing this and that. So you want to plant various, right? Otherwise, you're only getting like a mass 2 weeks of harvest.
Yeah. So for the farm, you plant June bearing. We have a ever bearing patch for the kids, and that is a snacking patch because it doesn't ever produce enough at a time. There's only 25 plants in it to be snacky.
Okay.
So they do a fairly big June flush and then a fall flush, but I don't find that they produce that well for like making jelly. You
Okay.
could freeze them as they come up, but I find them to be a snacking plant.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that, and I think also you mentioned there's harvesters and how expensive they are. We know how you're growing, and you're gonna hire help to pick. So does that mean it's just you and your husband that are literally planting one by one, or is there some type of equipment that you're using to plant?
So this year we did plant one by one. 1,000 strawberry plants, that wasn't too bad. If we were to plant 3 to 4 patches in a year, which when you are redoing patches because they need reworked up or you've had enough deer steel plants or something, you can get transplanters to completely redo that and you'll have it done in an hour. And most transplanters, you have somebody on the tractor with somebody else sitting on the transplanter feeding strawberries and plants into the transplanter.
Huh. I didn't even know that was a thing or existed.
Right.
That's something we're on the lookout for.
Um, Too bad we're not closer, because I would
Yeah.
have definitely picked strawberries.
Yeah.
But, that's another thing. You're hiring people, paying them to pick. Do they sneak one?
Of course they will.
I was like, I wonder if everybody. I don't think I would. I don't think I would have the restraint. I think, like, at the very first, we're job day one, I would look you in the face and I'd be like, can I eat one? Like, I wouldn't want to steal it, so I wouldn't just eat it.
So, of course, we haven't had to hire anyone to pick for us yet. But when I was picking, we were told, you're allowed to eat as much as you want, you just won't get paid for it.
Fair.
Because you get paid by the pound.
Because I'm like...
Pick one, eat one. Pick one, eat one.
We went in to pick... we've got one big question for you left, but little sidetrack here. We went to go pick in Omaha, outside Omaha, Nebraska. There is Pam Nelson, and that is a big. They're just growing and growing and growing. Their farm's crazy now. They even have like agritourism thing. We were able to go to petting zoo style, and it's a thing. But they have rows and rows of strawberries, and I mean, how fun it was. So theirs had that black. They did plant in mounds, but they had that black plastic over the whole thing. And then just, so it was mounded, covered in black plastic, and then there was just black plastic that you'd walk on. And so when you were walking through, you could see all the red berries, and you're racing the other people to those berries, trying to get them. And so we thought that was super fun. But I wondered, having the black plastic and stuff like that, if we can see them so well, I suppose you have a lot of aerial issues then.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can try to shoot the birds, scare them off. The farm we worked on had the bird cannon, and they'd shoot them off. Typically, that was more blueberries that you had the biggest issues with, because of course they can land on the bush and eat the berries while sitting there.
Yeah, I think we're gonna net ours, just because I'm like, man, when
you get to farm size, the netting becomes almost impossible.
Yeah,
Homestead is definitely recommended.
Fortunately for us, our goal here is to have the entire property be all permaculture gardening and food forestry with spots of silvopasture. And so for us, you'd think because it's homestead level it would be manageable, but actually maybe this first couple years, but even though it's only going to be planted out on 5 acres, it's going to be so spread out, and doing it permaculture style, we're going to be creating so many, an ecosystem. There's no way we're going to be able to net all those, and there's no way we're going to be able to manage that. Eventually, it's just going to get pretty wild. And so I think the back part of it We're going to plant like some varieties that are good pollinators and companions, but not necessarily our chosen varieties. And those will be at the edges and stuff for the deer and things like that, because it is still, they're still important, but they're important in their own space. So I think that's what we'll do. So the last burning question is, what do you do in the off season to prepare for the next one, other than, your deep bedding? But then what do you do as a farm, or as a, I don't know, what do you do?
Well, I mean, winter is pretty slow. Just, it's, your kind of your time of rest, your time of reset. So that will be a lot of number crunching, deciding how many different varieties you want, if you want to expand, because we reevaluate our goals every winter.
Same.
Reevaluate varieties, right? If you had one that did really well, you might change and get a different variety to get into a later season, because you're finding maybe that we're too far north for the early season.
Well,
So when you get the late June bearing instead of the early June bearing, to adjust. Or you can be equipment maintaining, right? That's when you do your deep dives into cleaning stuff up.
Right. Yeah, we made our list for winter prep, and then we have spring prep for what we do over winter, and then we have summer prep for what we do in spring. We just got done making those lists. Man, they're lengthy, but we have gotten so behind, and so we've really got to, get scooting. And so winter affords that. I worry about this winter. It's going to be a nasty one, I think, is what they're calling. And
Yeah,
so
we're worried about our berries because they aren't as strong as they should be, because it's been a drought.
yeah.
And it doesn't look like we're going to get the rain in the fall either. So if it gets cold and wet, it might be interesting. So we're going to try to do a little bit of extra deep bedding, and we can afford to do that this year simply because we started out small.
Right.
And if you're wanting to get started on a farmer's market type level, you're definitely going to want to start small and grow rather than jump in, because you don't want to lose all of your crop because you decided to plant 10,000 plants this year.
Right. That's a good thing to kind of remember, to just grow as you go, instead of, I think people get overwhelmed thinking, even for us, 150 plants, that's actually not bad, but people think they're going to do these U-picks, and I think it's good that they heard you say 1,000 is small, because I think people go in and they think they're going to have this crazy yield, but they only put in 400 plants and they don't even have enough for jelly, so
Right.
Yeah, people definitely do too little for themselves, and then when they try to do the farm, they do too much.
Yeah.
Our mentors jumped in with 2 acres of berries all at once.
Yeah. Oh man, holy cow.
And they're like, we were exhausted. We were breaking our backs. And she's like, you have kids? She's like, we started without kids because they adopted their kids later.
Wow. Yeah.
And she's like, no, start small. And reiterated it so many times when we were calling and asking questions about getting started. And, we FaceTime a lot, tried to ask all the questions that, how many plants per acre, because we didn't remember. We just did as we were told.
Yeah. What is that? How many plants per acre is that?
Okay, so about a fourth of an acre is about 13 to 1,500 plants.
Wow.
And that's with spreading them out for runners. So if you want to just let them go to berry in the first year, you would plant them closer together.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We were way off on our numbers. We've got a lot of work to do for spring. So, we've taken so much of your time. We appreciate you coming and talking. And I know I'm not the only one sitting here listening really? Huh? Interesting. So, where do you have a farm page, Facebook page? Do you have any of that stuff, or is that something you're going to create later?
Yes, we do have it. It is God's Golden Acres, and that name is from a farm sign on the farm. My parents rented for 28 years and then bought.
Wow.
Awesome.
And the original owner, like as soon as he found out my mom was having babies after 12 years of infertility, like redid the house for my parents and was just super sweet.
That's
And
really
so,
encouraging that she had
yeah,
children after 12 years. We are 11 years, nothing.
so of course, we're very godly people. Why it's God's Golden Acres. Uh, be careful what you prayed for. I'm a triplet.
Well, I wanted to have 6 or 7. I'm pretty sure he was like, no, ma'am. But yes, my son is from previous. He desperately wants siblings. He's always wanted siblings. We've just tried and tried, and we're not going to give up. We're just not. It's not a primary thought right now. It's just if it happens or whatever at this point. We are fortunate that we are young. We are just in our early 30s, so a lot of people, they don't have luck until 45, so we're just remaining optimistic. But that's awesome that I love that. Our name has a meaning too, and I just love to hear the stories behind it. So is it God's Golden Acres on just Facebook, or do you have others?
So Facebook, I don't update as much. YouTube, I try to do a video once or twice a week, and you can see like how the drought has affected our strawberries on those videos. And we also have Instagram.
Perfect.
And it's God's Golden Acres, all one word. For searching is usually the best way to find it on like Instagram, and then on YouTube you can type it out normally.
Yeah, we will be watching a lot of the YouTube videos personally and things like that. We have a YouTube. We've paused in preparation for something big that's coming in summer, but we encourage everyone to go follow Kimberly. It was so nice of her to adjust her schedule. We've had an absolutely crazy week. It's been just insane, and for the fact that she was so flexible, let's show her that love. And she's a fellow Missouri resident, and of course we are too, so special place there, so we really appreciate that. But
yeah,
on that note, we're going to let you enjoy your Sunday, and thank you so much. And again, you can look on any of our social media. We will have her linked into many posts. And on that note, let's learn.
let's grow.
Let's go. Thanks, Kimberly.
Thanks for having me.